The Baroque priorities are text and rhythm, Caccini 1601. Before about the year 1800, music is seen as one of the rhetorical arts, and the simplest way of understanding that is that music is therefore related to speaking aloud, to making a speech. So how are we instrumentalists going to make our playing be like text, like speech? Well, European poetry through the whole of this period is nearly always based on the contrast between accented and unaccented syllables. In music, we call these good and bad syllables, good and bad notes, and you therefore have good and bad fingers. The thumb is good. Finger 2, the index finger, is bad. Finger 3, the middle finger, is good. And around the year 1600, fingering systems for the harp are built around these 3 fingers. Very often people coaching early music will say you should never play 2 notes the same way, one after another. That's good advice. Perhaps a more positive way to put it is to say that the default setting is to alternate good and bad, just as it is in poetry. So if we think of some of the most famous lines of European poetry, to be or not to be, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good. Nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. So it's not always alternating, there can be other patterns, but alternating is a good starting point. So let's learn how to play a scale with alternating fingerings. Place 3 and 2, 3 will be good, 2 will be bad, and play those 2 notes. Now slide your hand up, replace 3 and 2, and play the next 2 notes. Slide your hand up, replace 3 and 2. Slide your hand up, replace 3 and 2. And we can finish with 1. There's a lot more we could say about the mechanics, the hand position, the finger shape. That's beyond the scope of this video. But this is something you can do with the finger mechanics you're used to. And you can do it on whatever kind of harp, with the harp that you're used to. So here's an upward scale, alternating good and bad. Notice that I'm playing 2 notes and then replacing the hand, and so on, 2 notes at a time. This comes from the Italian language. Think of all the familiar Italian words: forte, piano, dolce, arpa, pizza, pasta. All these words have 2 syllables, and they all have the same pattern: good, bad, and since it's inside one word, the Italian language tends to join good to bad. Good, bad, that was joined together. Now we move the hand. We can combine this with the idea of tactus. So these are more or less tactus values. And we could have the same idea, still thinking syllabically, but now with crotchets, 2 notes to a tactus. Down, up, good, bad, good, bad. And part of the good, bad is also the idea, very subtly, of long, short. That also comes from poetry, and Caccini, for example, calls his syllables long and short rather than good and bad, as most sources do. How much to do this? It's certainly not forte piano. It's more this very subtle long short. It's just the finger action, the pairing of the fingers. You have to listen. If you can't hear it, then exaggerate a bit. As your ears and fingers get more accustomed to all this, you'll be able to work at a more subtle level. In the end, it's always an artistic choice how clear you're being with this. Do I say to be or not to be? Or do I say it more like to be or not to be? Or all the possible variations in between? Probably the important thing is not to have it the wrong way. You don't want to say tubby or not tubby. Similarly, when we're playing, just be careful that you don't reverse the good and bad. Yeah, it's not that. When that's going smoothly, then try doing quavers. And again, you can decide how much to emphasize the middle there on the second tactus beat. This one, how much do you emphasize that? It's a musical choice. And a very important principle in early music is that those choices of accentuation of goods and bads and how much to do it, those are all like text. And the text is coordinated with the tactus, but not necessarily always having the stresses in the same place. Think again of poetry. We can have some very regular lines of poetry. When I do count the clock that tells the time. We can also have interestingly irregular lines of poetry. If music and sweet poetry agree. And all the fun, all the artistry, all the beauty is in varying how the goods and bads of the syllables, of the notes, interact with the regular pattern of the scansion in poetry or of the tactus in music. Just to finish the story, if you're an Italian Baroque harp specialist, you will come down with 1-2, thumb underneath. Otherwise, if this is all new to you, and if you want to apply this to modern harp, for example, without changing too much of your existing finger action and other habits, I would suggest another historical fingering. This is Spanish. It's also used in 18th century France. And this is to come down with the thumb over. You'll be more comfortable with that. And to come down 1-2, 3-2, 3-2. And the effect of this is that your 3-2, 3-2, those two fingers just walk the hand down the harp more continuously. But you still have this pairing effect. And the pairing effect is still there when you play faster. You can smooth it out, you can exaggerate it, those are choices, but it's always there just a little bit, and that's one of the very characteristic period sounds. My suggestion would be that you can use these fingerings with whatever hand position and finger action you're used to, with whatever harp you're used to, that these fingerings will give you that early music sound in a way that no amount of thinking about it and writing stuff into your score will ever do. So try these fingerings. 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. And then coming down, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. You go up with discrete steps and you come down walking continuously. In the next video, we'll look at what happens when a more interesting melody and more interesting words come into play.